Hi, welcome to Finance. I'm here to talk to you about what happened in 2022. I'm going to do a big picture that's going to summarize the city's information in a way, hopefully, that doesn't require you to have an accounting degree to follow along. The summary I'm going to talk about is going to be a accrual basis of accounting, and we're going to look at the city as a whole. We're not going to talk about individual funds of the city. We're just going to combine everything together. For revenues for the year, there was $26 million. I'm going to focus on the top 8 categories, which actually represent 94% of the total. The first category is going to be property taxes. They come in at $8 million for the year. Property taxes make up 32% of the total revenues. An interesting fact about Suwanee's property and property taxes is that roughly they're made up of 50% residential and 50% that are not residential. This is a very even distribution. It's not normally common with most municipalities. Our second category is going to be special purpose local option sales tax, or better known as SPLOST. It's our second highest revenue at 17%, coming in at $4.5 million. You ask, what is a SPLOST? SPLOST is a voter-approved 1% sales tax that is used to fund capital outlay projects. Our current SPLOST, which is the 2017 SPLOST, was voted and approved in 2016. This 1% sales tax started in April of 2017 and will continue until March of 23, this coming up year. This past November, voters approved to continue with this 1% sales tax. It will begin where the other one left off, starting in April of 23, and it's going to continue to March of 29. This is a great revenue source for capital and infrastructure for the city. The third category is donated infrastructure and land that the city receives. In total, in 2022, we received $3 million, which is 11%. You may be asking, what is donated infrastructure? You know what land is, but donated infrastructure, an example would be when a neighborhood is completed, roads, curbs, sidewalks, and stormwater systems all get donated to the city when the project is completed and the final plat has been approved. Ownership of these items and repair and maintenance from that point on is transferred to the city. Our fourth category is actually business licenses. This comes in at $3 million. Business license revenues includes the revenues we receive from businesses that renew their occupational license in the city. We also receive funding from the state from the insurance premium tax. This tax is collected at the state and is distributed to municipalities based on their populations. An interesting fact, in 2022, we renewed 1,130 licenses in Suwanee. Our fifth category is franchise fees. This comes in at $2 million. Franchise fees are the fees that your utilities are charged to use the city's streets and right-of-ways. They use our city's streets and right-of-ways to provide the services that they're giving to the citizens and to businesses. We received over 50% of our franchise fees from Georgia Power, coming in at $1 million. Federal, state, and local grants is our sixth source, providing $2 million or 7% of the total. The largest revenue source in this category actually was from the American Rescue Plan Act, better known as ARPA. With governmental accounting, you're only allowed to recognize revenue from a grant as the expenditures are expended. We received $8 million in grant funding, but in 2022, we only recognized $1 million. The $1 million that we recognized was expenditures that we had on storm drainage. The second category is title ad valorem tax, better known as title tax. It used to be called the old birthday tax because car owners would pay their annual renewals on their vehicle tax on their birthdays. The new title tax is a one-time payment that it's done when the car is being titled, usually when it's being purchased or traded in ownership. At the state level, this is a 6.6% tax, and it's distributed to the cities. In 2022, we received $1 million from this tax. Our final and eighth top revenue is one of my favorites. It's the alcohol beverage excise tax. In 2022, we received $1 million in these excise taxes. These are excise taxes that are paid by the wholesalers when they distribute liquor, malt beverages, and wine to retailers, both on-site and what you would have is for consumption off-site. Your on-site would be like your restaurants, your off-site consumptions would be like your grocery store, your liquor store, maybe even a Quick Trip. Another part of this tax is also a tax that's placed on liquor by the drink. If you go to a local restaurant like Eppolito's and you ordered a rum and coke or a Jack, and you had this beverage at that establishment, Eppolito's would collect an excise tax on this drink, and then they would pass on the tax that was collected to the city. This happens to be one of our most stable taxes. Out of the 23 years that I've been here, it doesn't matter what's going on with the economy, this tax is always performed at a very level rate. It's very interesting. Now that we're done with revenues, let's move on to expenditures. Our total expenditures for the year were $20 million. For expenditures, I'm going to focus on the top 5 categories. These top 5 categories represent 96% of the total. The number one top expenditure category is actually personnel salaries and benefits, making up 50% of the total at $10 million. It's not surprising that salaries and benefits are one of the largest categories, since the main purpose of a municipal government is to provide services. I'm going to kind of go over some of the services that you may not think of that were provided this year. Suwanee's police hosted 10 community outreach programs. They participated in 16 specialized response teams. They hosted 2 Citizen Police Academy sessions, and they participated in 6 lockdown drills at the local schools. They also implemented new police and dispatching software. We also restarted the Suwanee Youth Leadership Program, better known as SYL. We created a Suwanee Adventure magazine that was developed for kids. Suwanee's event schedule included over 40 events and 6 runs. We produced 6 Suwanee newsletters. We had 120 code enforcement issues that were addressed. We continued to focus on the I-85 Greatway area with litter control, street sweeping, and landscape maintenance. We had over 4,000 building inspections that were completed. We had 400 building permits that were issued, and we removed over 13 tons of materials from our stormwater catch basins and right-of-ways. We finalized design on the new town center and main park project that will be coming soon. The city worked with over 40 volunteers to clean up 2 miles of the Suwanee Creek Basin. 90 bags of trash were removed, and we also got 6 tires. We continued our mosquito control program to prevent and control mosquitoes that spread viruses. We had 1,120 open records requests that were processed. Human Resources received over 700 job applications. 85 of these applications were considered, and 32 new employees were hired. Our second category is depreciation expense. In 2022, we had $3 million in depreciation expense. Under accrual basis of accounting, capitalized assets are not expensed at the time that the expenditure has occurred. Instead, the expenditure is related to the life of the asset. So as an example, if we purchased a vehicle for $30,000 and it was going to have an estimated life of 5 years, we would recognize $6,000 in expense each year over the 5 years, instead of the $30,000 that was expended at the time of the purchase. Maintenance of the city's infrastructure is the third category. In fiscal year 2022, the city expended $3 million on street resurfacing, sidewalk repairs, traffic enhancements, and repairs to the city's stormwater system. Our fourth category is debt service payments. Suwanee's debt service was reduced by $2 million, 5% of our total outstanding debt. This was based on the normal debt service payments that were due. Suwanee maintains a AAA bond rating from Standard & Poor's. Our total outstanding debt at the year end was $31 million. Our final category is operation and maintenance and repairs of our parks, our facilities, our vehicles, and our equipment. This category represents 7% of our total expenditures, coming in about $1 million. I hope you enjoy talking about our revenues and expenditures. You may be wondering, what does the city own and what does it owe? At its simplest form, what the city owns is assets minus liabilities equals net position. The basic balance sheet formula. For the city at June 30th, this would be $140 million assets less $34 million in liabilities equals $106 million in net position. What the city owns, at June 30th, the city's total assets were $140 million. $42 million is available in cash and investments. Of this $42 million, $34 million was actually restricted. Restricted cash is cash that has been received but has restrictions on how the funds can be spent. We have 4 main categories of restricted cash. Our first one is Unspent Urban Redevelopment Authority, URA, bonds. These bonds are restricted to the use as outlined in our bond offering statement. Currently, we have $17 million in URA restricted funds that will be spent on the new Town Center on Main Park project. Our second category is SPLOST Local Option Sales Tax. These are funds that we have received, but we haven't expended. SPLOST funds are restricted based on the voter approval ballot categories and cannot be spent for other purposes. Currently, we have $8 million in SPLOST funding. These funds will be used for our new Town Center on Main Park project, road resurfacings, and stormwater system improvements. Our third category is capital projects, coming in at $6 million. These are funds that the City Council has assigned for the following programs: our master plan implementation, facilities enhancements, facilities maintenance, paved streets, stormwater systems improvements. The fourth and final category is American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, that we have received but we have not expended. ARPA funds are restricted by the federal government and can only be used for items that were outlined in the grant award. At June 30th, we had $3 million in ARPA funds. Suwanee has $2 million in receivable balances. These balances include leases, property taxes, excise taxes, and SPLOST revenues. We had $1 million in land that is being held for future development. The city has a trustee balance of $7 million in pension assets. These are assets that are being held in a trust for our current and former employees for their retirements. Our final and largest category of assets is capitalized assets, with a balance of $88 million. This is not a depreciation. Capitalized assets include land, projects that are currently under construction, land improvements. Land improvements would be something like landscaping or retaining walls that are added later to a project, buildings, machinery and equipment, vehicles, and infrastructure. Infrastructure includes streets, sidewalks, stormwater pipes, and interesting enough, Suwanee's water tower, and other non-movable assets. Next we'll go on, what does the city owe? At June 30th, Suwanee's total liabilities were $34 million. Suwanee had $800,000 in accounts payable. This is money that is owed to vendors for service or goods that have been received but we have not paid them. We have $1 million in notes payable. This is for an economic development loan that was taken out for properties purchased in the downtown development area. Bonded debt is our largest category. At June 30th, we had an outstanding debt balance of $31 million in bonded debt. Our bonded debt is broken into two categories. We have general obligation bonds and we also have revenue bonds. At June 30th, the city had $6 million in general obligation bonds. These bonds were issued in 2002 and they were refinanced in 2016. The interest rate on these bonds is 1.96, a very good interest. These bonds will be paid off in fiscal year 2027. These bonds were taken out to purchase open and green space. Several properties that you might know were purchased with these bond funds. Some of these properties include Town Center on Main, Suwanee Creek Park, Sims Lake Park, Playtown Suwanee, and also the land that's going to be used for the new park being constructed, Town Center on Main. At June 30th, the city had $25 million in revenue bonds. There are two bonds that make up this payable balance. The first bond was issued in fiscal year 2006, and it was for the construction of the building that we're in, City Hall. These bonds were refinanced in 2015. They also have an excellent interest rate at 1.94. These bonds will be paid off in fiscal year 2022. The second bonds were issued in 2017 for the construction of a new park on Main Street, the one that's coming up, Town Center on Main, Main Street realignment, and the court facilities improvements that were done. The interest rate on these bonds is a little bit higher, it's 3.3, and these bonds will be paid off in fiscal year 2038. The difference between city's assets and liabilities is our net position. At June 30th, net position for Suwanee was $1.6 million.